Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have something absolutely incredible to take a look at. We've got ourselves the Artic Figures Terror Bird, and this is one that I was just beyond hyped for because I love the Terror Bird, and we really don't get very many figures of it. In fact, it's been a while since we had a good one. Actually, it's been a while since we just had one, period. So having one that is insanely beautiful like this with tons of articulation from Artic Figures is just beyond my average excitement level. And you can see that again, it is just beautiful as far as the sculpt goes. It's beautiful as far as the paint goes. Like, it is just one incredible looking version of a terror bird. You've got that really nice visual of it kind of staring you down. Obviously, I got an unpainted version. Not only do we have an incredible sculpt, we also have tons of articulation throughout the entire figure, as you always find with an Artic Figures release, which is always super awesome. It's really exciting to see a nice prehistoric bird here from Artic Figures, giving us an idea of how good of a job he can do when it comes to feather detail as well. I just love seeing what he's capable of, and clearly he does a phenomenal job because the feather detail on this looks insanely nice. So let's go ahead and jump straight to a closer look at this beautiful terror bird right now. So starting up here at the head sculpt of our terror bird, look at the nice looking detail there in the beak of the terror bird. It has some beautiful kind of small cracks and crevices, and when you run along the lower part of the beak here, along the jawline, you can just kind of see like chips and stuff out of the beak, which I think is a very realistic aspect to the model. Let's go ahead and actually open the mouth very nice and very carefully, so you can get a better look at that. You can see as you run along the jawline, again, that is a really nice heavy dose of realism, I think, for the figure, which is something that Artic Figures is always so good at, is kind of sculpting his stuff out in the absolute most realistic way possible. He absolutely has done that just right there in that one area of the beak. It looks phenomenal. You can also see the nostrils sculpted out right there, and of course the tongue there on the inside of the mouth looks great. You can see the kind of skin flaps here on the side of the mouth. As you open the mouth, the articulated jaw works really nicely. You can see the detailing there on the upper side of the inside of the mouth looks great as well. So overall, the entire mouth area of our terror bird looks great. As you start to lead back into the face a little bit, you lose focus apparently, but you also start to see some of the feathers picking up. Really nice fine feathering here in the majority of the face. A little bit scruffier feathering kind of hanging off of the lower jaw down here. But up here in the upper part, like around the eye socket and near the nostrils and stuff, it's really quite fine as far as the feather detail goes. You can also see the eye is quite beautifully sculpted out as well. As we lead up here to the top of the head, we continue to again have that quite nice looking, very fine feathering. And of course, as you articulate the head right there, you can see that continues to move back there underneath the next area. But as you lead here into the neck a little bit further, again we lose focus. Really doesn't like this coloration apparently. But you can start to see again scruffier feathers here kind of leading off of the back of the neck. All sorts of varying sizes of feathers sculpted out very nicely from Artic Figures. And as you move down the course of the neck, not only do you continue to see beautiful feathering, but you also see a very different style of feathering start to kind of transition here as you have these scruffier feathers, and they transition to a much nicer looking, more uniform feathering moving down. And you can also see again how the kind of scruffier feathers taper off here, moving along the back. But that feather detail as well is extremely nice looking, really crisp. And when you get nice and close, like the detailing, if my camera would focus on it, the detailing is insane on each and every feather. It just baffles my mind how long it must take Artic Figures to sculpt these models out. But as far as articulation goes, you can obviously see we have the articulated jaw, which we've already taken a look at. You've got a spot of articulation right here. You also have a plethora as you move down the neck. You've got another spot right here, another spot here, 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 and here. So as you move down, you can articulate that neck all over the place to give your terror bird pretty much any position, any pose that you would like as far as the head and neck area goes, and it's very smooth articulation the entire way through. As you move back here into the back, following along the spinal column, you see more really nice feathering here all over the place. Again, really highly detailed feathers on this. This might be some of the nicest feather detail I've ever seen. And as you move down into the wing, you can again see some more really nice fine feathering. As you lead down a little bit further, you can obviously see a really nice display of plumage out here toward the end of the wing, and it looks really good. And again, I love how erratic the feathers are. Like, they all just kind of jumble together, and it just looks so realistic the way he sculpted this out. And of course, you have more articulation as you move down here. You've got a spot right here. Actually, let's go from the side. You've got a spot right here in the shoulder area, which is a little stiff currently, but you also have a spot right here and then another spot here, so you can articulate the wings very nicely however you would like, moving forward and back all over the place. All sorts of really nice articulation for that area. And then here on the underside, you can again see those kind of scruffier feathers picking up. And I love how not only do they have a scruffy appearance, but they actually like genuinely almost jump off of the sculpt. So it looks super, super cool. I'm actually really hyped to paint this up because it's definitely one of the coolest looking feathered figures that I'll ever have the pleasure of painting up. As you continue to move along through the course of the figure, you again have more articulation here in the midsection. So you've got a really nice area where you can go up, down, left, right here in the midsection of your terror bird. But as you continue to move along a little further back, you still have some more really nice feather detail up here in the back. As you move down toward the thigh, you again have a slightly different, almost a little bit scruffier look to the feathers right here moving down. You can see the kneecap right there. And again, more really nice feathering here as you move down through the course of the leg, down through the calf. And then as you lead into the foot sculpt, you have some really beautiful, let's see here, try to get this foot in a position where we could see it a little bit nicer. Really beautiful skin texture throughout, and a fantastic looking foot sculpt. Insanely nicely done as far as that foot sculpt goes. It looks like basically looks like an emu foot sculpt, which is exactly how I would expect the feet to look on a terror bird. And you can also see the nails are sculpted really beautifully as well. That is one incredibly phenomenal foot sculpt. And you can also see we do have dew claws. You can see the one over there. You can see this one right here, which as well are sculpted in very realistic fashion. And then as you move out into the tail feathers, actually before we go that far, we'll check out the articulation in the leg, which I completely skipped over. We've got the hip area, you also have the knee right there, and then you've got a spot right here, as well as another spot down here, which can swivel and move forward and back and stuff. So quite a bit of articulation in the legs, which again creates lots of posability for the figure. And then as you move out, one area you normally have a ton of articulation in for an Artic Figures release would be the tail, but since we're looking at a bird here with a fairly short tail, we've got one spot of articulation right here, and that's really about it. But that's pretty much all you could do when it comes to a terror bird like this. You really can't expect more articulation than that moving out into such a heavily feathered tail like this that is awfully short. But again, just like the feathers appeared on the underside of the chest and stuff, you can see how they legitimately just jump off of the sculpt. Like, they are so high quality, it is insane through the course of this terror bird. This is easily, far and away, the best terror bird I've ever seen. And you can see again that the feathers look great here on the underside. You can really see how they each and every feather just hangs off of the bird beautifully here on the underside of the sculpt. And again, of course, they lead out here toward the end. This thing is just phenomenal. I'm honestly almost breathless here looking at how incredible of a terror bird this is. So I'm beyond hyped to get this painted up. I just am dying at this point to get some paint on this terror bird. So let's get it painted. We'll come back and check it out from there. So here is my painted up terror bird. Now I went ahead and used the artwork for this figure actually from Artic Figures as the inspiration to paint it up. That's what I used to kind of base the paint scheme and paint job off of, because I definitely wanted to make it kind of match up with what we see in the image here. And you can see the image right here that shows off the idea for the color scheme and everything from Artic Figures. And again, I tried to kind of replicate it as best I could while still applying my own personal touches, and I felt like it turned out okay. Definitely a color scheme that I could potentially see on an animal like this, on a terror bird. And again, once you actually take a look at it with paint on it, again, the actual sculpting and fine detail is phenomenal. It is absolutely gorgeous, and you can see how vibrant the actual detail is as you move through. The feathers honestly just like leap off of the sculpt. They are that good overall. And again, when it comes to an articulated terror bird, it's not something that we really get very often. In fact, I don't know if we have any. I can't ever recall there being an articulated terror bird, especially not one with this much articulation, which is exceptionally exciting, and this much detail as well. I honestly don't know if I have a terror bird in my collection that can even remotely compete with this as far as fine detail goes. I feel like this one is about the highest of quality sculpt that you're going to find on a terror bird, and again, with some paint application on it, it absolutely comes to life in the most beautiful way. I actually was originally considering maybe going with the Walking with Beasts version paint scheme, and then changed my mind and went with the more Artic Figures style version. Since it's an Artic Figures release, I figured an Artic Figures paint scheme would make more sense. But again, it is insanely, insanely beautiful. You again have the detailing on the inside of the mouth that my camera absolutely refuses to focus on ever, but we have the articulated jaw, which still works pretty nicely and everything. We can get it closed further than that. There you go. You can get it nice and closed and everything. So again, absolutely incredible when it comes to Artic Figures. I love the stuff that they are producing, and I love that they're not only producing, Jurassic Park and Jurassic World style dinosaurs, but we also get, obviously prehistoric birds as far as our terror bird here. We also get Tremors stuff, and we had a Megaraptor at one point. So they're producing so much of a variety. It's just incredible. And this terror bird, again, is insanely, insanely beautiful. And look at how insanely cool the terror bird looks standing here. And for a length from the beak to the tail, you're looking at about 6.5 inches, or around 16.5 centimeters, maybe closing in on 17. And then for a height to the back of the head, just shy of about 5 inches, or around 12.5 centimeters. For a size comparison, here is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, and Robert Muldoon from the Mattel Jurassic World toy line here next to the Artic Figures Terror Bird. And you can see that the Terror Bird sports a pretty decent size. I would say it's a very, very strong medium-sized figure overall, and honestly is pretty much the size range you would want for a terror bird. But for another comparison, here is the National Geographic Wildlife Wow Forest Raucous next to the terror bird from Artic Figures, and you can see a huge size difference, but you can also see a huge difference in quality. The funny thing is, I actually filmed a review for this Wildlife Wow figure like a year or two ago. Like, it was a long time, and I never actually posted it. In fact, I think I uploaded it and everything and just never posted the review. But someday maybe I'll end up posting that review. I think that's probably, I filmed it maybe about 1.5 years ago, and then maybe put it up about 8-9 months ago. I uploaded it and edited it and everything and never actually posted it. But you can see again, if you do happen to have this Wildlife Wow figure, a comparison here next to the Artic Figures Terror Bird. And again, my Terror Bird figures are few and far between. There are very few, but the only other Terror Bird that I can say I have in my collection that can even remotely compete with the Artic Figures version is this one, which you can see is much smaller. This is actually the Kayakasaurus version of the Terror Bird, and that as well is a beautifully sculpted version, but obviously a massive size difference between these two, as the Kayakasaurus version is actually quite small. But we also have the Collect A version here as well, next to the Artic Figures version, and you can definitely see again another pretty significant size difference between these two, but I would absolutely say the Artic Figures version wins this round as far as overall appearance and quality and everything. The Collect A version's okay for its time, but the Artic Figures version is definitely better. So with that Collect A comparison, that has now exhausted my Terror Birds as far as I can recall. I don't think I have any others, and if I do, I'm totally forgetting about them. But we have some randoms here with the Mattel Velociraptor and Dilophosaurus next to the Terror Bird as well. But for one final comparison, and again, totally randoms, we have the Safari Ltd Eutyrannus, the Schleich Diabloceratops, and Collect A Dimetrodon here next to our Kelenken, just to give you one final idea as far as size goes next to this beautiful Artic Figures release. So this Artic Figures Terror Bird is fantastic, and as I said earlier, is definitely one of Artic Figures' best releases yet. And like I said also earlier, I love the fact that they kind of give us a really nice healthy dose of different style figures. Like we've had, regular dinosaurs like Megaraptor. We've had Jurassic Park dinosaurs with the Velociraptor, the T-Rex, the Spinosaurus. We also had Tremors releases with some graboids, and now we've got also this Terror Bird. So much variety when it comes to the stuff that he releases, which I just absolutely adore. I really love when someone will focus on numerous different areas of different dinosaurs and different prehistoric creatures rather than just sticking with one thing. Like, it's just so much more fun to be able to collect a wide array of different stuff. And again, even though the graboid technically is a modern-day film and a made-up creature, it still counts as prehistoric in a way. But this terror bird is absolutely my favorite terror bird in my collection. The sculpt is phenomenal. It is really, really highly detailed. Like, honestly, for a terror bird, it's taking highly detailed to new heights because the feather detail on this is incredible. And seeing just how good of a job Artic Figures does on feather detail makes me desperately want him to sculpt more models that have feathers, because I don't know if I've ever seen feather detail look so crisp and so impressive on a model. He really puts his all into his sculpts, and you can clearly see that here with this insanely nice terror bird. There's just so much life to the model as far as the feather detail goes. Like, it just honestly jumps off of the sculpt. There's so many feathers just sticking out in random places. The detailing of the feathers just so erratic and so realistic looking, and I really love the way he has done this as far as the fine detail of the feathers. Just the overall appearance, though, of the terror bird as well is incredibly well done. It replicates a terror bird, in my opinion, perfectly, and on top of that, it sports insane amounts of articulation, which is something, again, that I've never had the pleasure of owning, would be a terror bird with articulation. I have very few terror birds, as you can see from those comparisons in general. I really don't get the opportunity to get many of them, but to have one with articulation makes it even cooler. Of course, I painted mine. I do believe he had intentions of releasing some painted by him. I don't know when that will occur, but I'm thinking at some point he's going to release them. But his primary focus currently, I believe, is the Spinosaurus, so maybe after that's over, he'll get some more up that are painted or something like that. So if this is something that you are interested in, what you could do right now is head to the link that I will include in the description to the Etsy shop of Artic Figures. There are currently a few of these available. I don't know how long they'll last after this video is posted, so they may sell out pretty quickly. If you happen to head over there and there aren't any available, just keep checking back. Or, of course, the best thing you could really do would be to follow Artic Figures on Instagram, as they always inform people on there of, what's going up on the Etsy shop. And you can also check the Etsy shop out for all sorts of other figures, as they do, I believe, have some unpainted graboids as well as tyrannosaurs and all that fun stuff up on the Etsy shop currently for sale. So make sure you check that link in the description. Go grab this beautiful terror bird, and also grab any other